YouTube, Joe Walker here. I'm making a live lesson for my student Bernhard who couldn't make it today. And I'm going to show Bernhard and you how to find major and minor chords all over the guitar fretboard. I've heard a lot of beginner and intermediate players, and maybe even advanced players, maybe even myself, say something along the lines of, I want to know the fretboard better. But really, in order to tackle that, it's a never-ending quest. In order to tackle that, you have to figure out exactly what, right now, you want to know better on the fretboard. That will help you learn the whole thing better. So the things that are useful to know all over the fretboard would be like A notes everywhere. I was just playing a bunch of A chords. So if you know where all the A's are, A, if you know all those very quickly, then you can navigate whenever you need that. And same thing with all the other notes. Other things that are useful would be like major scales, minor pentatonic scales, blues scales, major pentatonic, major chords, and minor chords. Anything that you use very often in the stuff that you're playing or the stuff that you want to play is useful to know all over the fretboard. If you're into jazz, you might also be doing like melodic minor scales or alto dominant scales, or other concepts or licks, being able to play licks all over the fretboard or little phrases. So whatever it is you want to know to be able to play wherever you want and have some independence with what you want to be able to play, that's the kind of thing that you want to try to learn all over the fretboard. So one of those crucial steps, two of those crucial steps would be learning major chords and minor chords all over the fretboard, not just playing them as open chords and as bar chords. So today I'm just going to be covering A major and A minor, just those two chords. So you've got A major, bar, open chord, A minor, open chord, A major, bar chord, A minor, bar chord, and then you probably know them up here too, even if it's hard to play up here, but you know that root right there, A major, bar chord, A minor, bar chord. So beyond those, there are lots of other ways you can assemble those three notes that you need in order to make a major chord, or the three notes you need to make a minor chord. And I'm going to walk you through what I was just playing at the beginning of this video, going through all the different variations of three adjacent strings. There are still many, many more variations you could do beyond what I'm going to give you now, but these are all the basic ones. So three adjacent strings playing the three different notes that you need to make a major chord. That's what we'll start with. So for A major, we're going to start with this root right here. I'm using my pinky on this first, 5th fret on the low E string. And to get the three notes that we need for a major chord, we need the root. So we're going to have to know where to find an A when we get these other places too. We have the root A, and then we need the 3. We go up a major third to get that note, like that. So that's going up one string and back one fret. That's an important shape to remember because we're going to use it all over the place. That's the 1 and the 3, and then we need the 5. You might find this to be an awkward stretch. If you get your hand in a good position to open up your fingers, it's not so awkward. But for some of these, if they feel awkward, then just don't use that voicing very often. Just make sure you know where these notes are. So you could do it with just one finger through them like that. So that gives you a major chord. Just three notes, three simple notes. The notes are A, C sharp, and E, but we can think of them as 1, 3, and 5. And those refer to the notes in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So we got 1, 3, and 5. That gives us a major chord. Now we're going to rearrange those notes all over the place, and we'll get a whole bunch of other ways to do it. So we can take that 1 off of there and move it an octave higher and move it up here to the G string. So now we still retain the 3 and the 5, but now we have the 1 on top. So you flatten this finger and you can get, that is another version for an A chord. This is starting to resemble the open A chord. If you play it with one finger, you've got that sitting here, and then you put your third finger over here. Instead of getting that open string A root, get the 3 instead of the root. And you have this other variation to play for an A major chord. Next, we can take that 3 off and move that an octave higher. Oops. That comes up here to C sharp on the B string, 2nd fret. Now we're just getting 2nd fret across those 3 strings. Next, we're going to move, so that those notes are 5, 1, 3. Now we're going to move that 5 up an octave, and it goes up there to the high E string. Now we get 1, 3, 5 again. That's what we started with. We had a 1, 3, 5, and then on the top was 1, 3, 5, an octave higher. Why don't those two shapes look the same? They look pretty different, right? The reason is, when you go from the G string to the B string, that's your tuning trap. That's where all of the shapes that you might know in other places are going to get sheared like this. The B string, whatever the shape is from the G string to the B string moves over 1 fret to the right, and everything beyond it moves over 1 fret to the right. So what you expected to have a shape like this, where you got your root and then go up diagonally, and then go up next string back 2 frets. In this case, we've got your root here. Then you go up, instead of going back 1 fret, we're even at the same fret now, and then we go back 2 frets to get to the 5. So it's important to think of them that way, because you can think of them as synonyms of each other. When I play these two, they really do feel like the same shape to me, even though they, like physically, they feel vastly different. But because I'm mentally mapping out, there's the 1 and then the 3 and then the 5, that map over here, if that's the 1, therefore that's the 3, then that's the 5. I'm making the same jumps from one note to the other, even though the shapes on the fretboard are a little bit different because of that tuning trap. Let's move on to the next one. So instead of starting on the root down here, we're going to start on the 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to start right there on the 9th fret. So if that's the 3, the 5 is still back 2 frets from that. So we've got 3 and 5, and then the 1 is right there. So we can still think of this as being anchored around whatever your closest root is that you know very well. And for me and most people, for an A root, it's right there. It's that 5th fret on the low E string. So you can think to yourself, if that's an A, or whatever your root is, if that's an A, therefore I've got an octave higher here. That's my root, and I know I have a 5 down there and a 3 down there. So you can start to build this shape in your mind as being another version of an A major chord. And this shape, 3, 5, 1, was the same thing we used a minute ago back here. 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 1. Same shape, same notes, just on a different set of strings and different frets. So let's move that 3 up an octave to here. Then we get this shape. Now we're getting a slice out of that big A major bar chord, which you know from this spot. These 3 fingers, not the index finger, finger 3 and 4 and 2, those notes that you're playing are the 5, the 1, and the 3. So you could play them with these 3 fingers, or you could play those 3 notes with these 3 and make it feel more like the shape of an open E major chord. Just moved up here to play A major. Next we can take that 5 and move it up an octave to here, and we get 1, 3, 5. Next we can take that 1, move it up an octave to here, and get 3, 5, 1. So I think you get the picture of how this is being developed. I'm going to go through the rest of it a little bit faster. Next, we're going to go start on the 5 down here, because the 1 that we have is right there. The 12th fret of the A string, that's our 1. So the 5 is right below it, the low E string on the 12th fret. So that's 5, 1, 3. Next, we're going to take that 5 and move it an octave higher up to here. So now we've got 1, 3, 5. That's the same shape we've used before. Next, we take that 1 and move it an octave higher, so we get 3, 5, 1. And this is a valuable note for me to memorize. I've got the B string stuck in my head really well, probably stronger than the G string or the D string. I know those notes on the B string really well because I use it as an anchor for a shape like this really often. So this is 3, 5, 1, and 5, 1, 3. That one feels like a D chord, because when you play open D chord, you're actually getting those same 3 notes. 5, 1, 3. Up here, when A is your root, 5, 1, 3. And that's it for the majors. If we go up to the next one, we would be duplicating what we started with. Let's do the minors now. For minor chords, we need the root, the flat 3, and the 5. So we get 5th fret down here, 3rd fret, 2nd fret. And then move that root an octave higher, we get flat 3, 5, 1. Move that flat 3 an octave higher, we get 5, 1, flat 3. Move that 5 an octave higher, we get 1, flat 3, 5. Then moving up to the next shape, we start on the flat 3 here in the 8th fret. We get 5 on the 7th, and we get the root on the 7th fret. And move that flat 3 an octave higher, we get this. And we've got a slice out of that minor bar chord now. 5, 1, flat 3, 1, flat 3, 5, flat 3, 5, 1. A lot of these shapes should probably be familiar. Some of them might be totally unfamiliar, but I bet you've used a lot of them if you've played around in various different solos or various parts of songs, learned some real riffs and some real solos. You've probably seen these shapes before. I don't know which ones you may have encountered, you people out there on YouTube, but if some of these are familiar, then try to latch onto those. And when you see them again, say, that's flat 3, 5, 1. That's my root up there, so that I know where those other notes are. And then you know that you can also grab this one. That's your root down there. So you can sort of harness the power of these shapes because a lot of them are familiar to you. The ones that are unfamiliar, you can either do the work and learn them and try to make them familiar, or ignore them for now and just capitalize on the ones that you do know and save the unfamiliar ones for later. Last one, we have starting on the 5, 12th fret. We have the 1 on the 12th fret and the flat 3, the 10th fret. So we get that. Move that 5 an octave up, we get 1, flat 3, 5. Move that 1 an octave up, we get flat 3, 5, 1. Move that flat 3 an octave up, we get 5, 1, flat 3. So all of that amounts to what I played at the very beginning of the video before I started talking. I just played all of that, which was just going up and down through those different shapes, where it started with A major. And this is what I recommend that you try to be able to do. Start with A major, and this will be like, in the beginning, it will be really grinding your gears, trying to go, which note is supposed to move where? It's like trying to put a puzzle together. But if you can memorize this stuff, then it's really, really valuable. So I was playing, I'll go through it one more time to sort of dictate what I was doing at the beginning of the video. So this A major, starting from the root. And I've got the 3 in the bass. I've got the 5 in the bass. I've got the root in the bass again. So all of those shapes overlap with each other. And then I went up to the next position, and I'll do all of these ascending. You can do them descending too, to mix it up for yourself. So then I was doing starting on the 3, starting on the 5, starting on the 1, starting on the 3, starting on the 5 up here, starting on the 1, starting on the 3, starting on the 5. Then to the minors, starting on the 1, starting on the flat 3, starting on the 5, starting on the 1, starting on the flat 3, starting on the 5, starting on the 1, starting on the flat 3, starting on the 5, starting on the 1, starting on the flat 3, starting on the 5. So as you memorize all those, it's important to not just memorize the shapes or the finger order or the muscle memory, but memorize what the actual notes are, what those scale degrees are. Memorize that this is the flat 3, so that when you want to do some bluesy thing like that, and you're over here, and you know these shapes, the shapes don't tell you how to get that sound, but if you know that that sound is flat 3, 3, 1, and you're over here, you want to go flat 3, 3, 1. You can manipulate the notes like that. If you know what they are, you can play what you hear in your head a lot easier. So memorize those as actual scale degrees, not as dots on a fretboard or as finger placements, but try to know that this is the 1 and that's the 5 and that's flat 3. Try to get all your majors and minors all over the fretboard, or at least start with the ones that are familiar to you and try to think of them in a new perspective now, rather than just open chords and bar chords. Thank you again for watching. I will see you next time.